Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. Chapter 2. I wasn't late to our meeting. Ever since that day a year and 8 months ago, I was never late. Why? Aaron Blackford. One time. I had been late one single time in Aaron's presence, and yet he kept flaunting that fact every chance he got. He never chalked it up to me being Spanish or a woman. Both unjustified stereotypes when it came to being notoriously unpunctual. Aaron didn't do nonsense. He pointed out facts, he stated verifiable truths. He had been disciplined to do that, just like every other engineer in the consulting company where we worked, me included. And technically, I had been late. That one time all those months ago. It was true that I had missed the first 15 minutes of an important presentation. It was also true that it had been Aaron leading it hard during his first week in Inteca, and it was again true that I had made a miserably loud entrance that might have involved accidentally knocking over a coffee pitcher on Aaron's stack of dossiers for the presentation. Fine, partly on his pants too. Not the best way to make an impression on a new colleague, but tough shit. Things like that happen all the time. Tiny, unintentional, unexpected accidents like those were common. People got over them and went on with their lives. But not Aaron. Instead, week after week and month after month ever since that day, he had barked stuff like, "Try not to be late to our 10 o'clock meeting. It's not cute anymore," at me. Instead, every single time he entered a conference room and found me sitting there, painfully early, he checked the watch on his wrist and raised his eyebrows in surprise. Instead, he moved coffee pitchers out of my reach with a warning tilt of his head in my direction. That was what Aaron Blackford did instead of letting go of that incident. "Good morning, Lena." A copywriter's kind voice reached me from the door. I could tell he was smiling before I took in his face, just like he always did. "Buenos dias, copywriter," I told him in the mother tongue we shared. The man that I considered like an uncle after he welcomed me into the close circle of his family placed a hand on my shoulder and squeezed lightly. "Doing good, Major? Can't complain." I returned the smile. "You coming over to the next barbecue?" "It's next month, and Lourdes keeps telling me to remind you. She's preparing ceviche this time, and you are the only one that will eat it." He laughed. It was true, no one in the Dawes family was a big fan of the fish-based Mexican dish. Which, to this day, I still couldn't understand. "Stop asking dumb questions, old man." I waved my hand in the air with a chuckle. "Of course I'll be the..." copywriter was taking his usual place to my right when our 3 remaining colleagues in attendance poured into the room, mumbling their good mornings. Lifting my gaze off copywriter's easy smile, my eyes tracked down the men walking around the table to assemble into our 10 o'clock formation. Across from me appeared Aaron, eyebrows raised and gaze quickly meeting mine. I watched his lips tip down as he took a chair out. Rolling my eyes, I moved on to Gerald, whose bald head glinted under the fluorescent light as he folded his rather chubby frame into the chair. Last but not least, there was KB, who had been recently promoted to the position everyone in this room held, a team leader of the solutions division of the company, which pretty much encompassed all disciplines but civil engineering, which was a beast on its own. "Good morning, everyone," KB started with the enthusiasm only someone who had been on the job for a month would have. "This week, it's my turn to lead and protocol the meeting, so if you could, please say present when I call your name. An exasperated grunt I was extremely familiar with filled the room. Glancing at the blue-eyed man across the table, I found the irritated face that went with the sound. "Of course, KB," I said with a smile even though I agreed with the scowling man. "Please call away." Ocean eyes pinned me with an icy look. Meeting his stare, I heard KB go through each of our names, obtaining confirmation from both Tilda copywriter and Gerald, an unnecessarily cheery present from me, and another grunt from Mr. Grumps. "All right, thanks," KB said. "Next point in the agenda is project status updates. Who would like to start?" He was met with silence. Intech provided engineering services for any entity that did not have the ability or manpower to design or engineer plans for their own projects. Sometimes, they outsourced a team of 5 or 6 people, and other times, only one person was needed. So, all 5 team leaders in our division were currently working and supervising several different projects for several different clients, and all projects never stopped moving forward, eating away milestones and encountering all kinds of issues and drawbacks. We had conference calls with the clients and stakeholders on a daily basis. The status of each project changed so briskly and in such a complex manner that there was no way every other team leader could catch up in only a few minutes. That was why KB's question had been met with silence. And why this meeting wasn't completely necessary. Arm a broken bar. KB shifted in his seat uncomfortably. "Okay, I can start." "Yeah, I'll go first." He shuffled through a folder he had brought with him. "This week, we are presenting to Telecor the new budget we've been developing for them. As you know, it is a startup that's working on a cloud service to enhance mobile data on public transportation. Well, the resources available are rather limited and a broken bar. I absently listened to my colleague while my gaze roamed around the meeting room. Tilda copywriter nodded his head, although I suspected he was paying as much attention as I was. Gerald, on the other hand, was openly checking his phone. Rude. So rude. But I didn't expect anything else from him. Then, there was him. Aaron Blackford, who I realized had been staring at me before my eyes met his. His arm reached out in my direction, his gaze holding mine. I knew what he was about to do. I knew. The long fingers attached to that massive palm spread out as they met the object in front of me. The coffee pitcher. I narrowed my eyes, watching how his hand curled around the pitcher's handle. He dragged it all the way across the surface of the oak desk. Very slowly. Then, he nodded his head. Infuriating blue-eyed grudge holder. I gave him a tight, closed-lip smile because the other option was launching myself across the room and pouring all the contents of the goddamn pitcher on him. Again. But this time, intentionally. Trying to distract myself from that thought, I averted my eyes and furiously scribbled a to-do list on my planner. Ask Kaisu if the bouquet she ordered for Mame was peonies or lilies. Order either a peony or lily bouquet for Takamam. If we didn't, she'd be giving me, Isa my sister and Bridea and Mame the stink eye until the day she or any of us kicked the bucket. Send Pape my flight details, so he knows when to pick me up from the airport. Tell Isa to remind Pape that he has my flight details, so he picks me up from the airport. I brought the pen to my lips, this awful feeling I was forgetting something important making me uneasy. Chewing on my pen, I scrambled my mind for whatever it was I was missing. Then, a voice I was terribly and unfortunately doomed to never forget thundered in my head. You are delusional if you think you can find someone in such a short amount of time. My eyes bounced back to the man sitting across from me, meeting his gaze again. As if I had been caught doing something wrong, like thinking of him, I felt the heat in my cheeks and returned my attention to the list. Find a boyfriend. I scratched that. Find a fake boyfriend. Doesn't need to be a real one. A broken bar and that's all I have to report. KB's words registered somewhere in the back of my head. I continued working on my list. Find a fake boyfriend. Doesn't need to be a real one. And also, not him. Surely, I had other options. Not the escort though. A quick Google search had confirmed that Aaron had been right. Again. Apparently, I had been lied to by Hollywood. New York seemed to be filled with men and women offering a wide range of varied and different kinds of services that were not limited to escorting. I grimaced and then chewed harder on the pen. Not that I'd ever admit that to Aaron. I'd rather give up chocolate for a full year than admit to Aaron that he was right. But I was desperate at this point. He had nailed that down too. I needed to find someone who would pretend to be in a serious, committed relationship with me in front of my whole family. And that didn't only include the wedding day, but also the 2 days of celebratory events that preceded that. Which meant, I was screwed. I was a broken bar and that would be Lena. My name broke into my brain, making everything else vanish. I dropped my pen on the table and cleared my throat. Yes, here. I tried to reinsert myself in the conversation. Listening. I'm listening. Isn't that what someone who wasn't listening would say? My gaze shot across the room, meeting a pair of blue eyes on the verge of showing amusement if the man behind them was capable of human emotions. I straightened my back and turned a page of my planner. I was writing down something for a call I have with a client later and lost track of the conversation. I lied. Something important. Aaron hummed, nodding his head. Thankfully, he let it go. Let's recap a little bit. Just so we are all clear on where we stand, KB offered in a gentle voice. He'd be getting a muffin tomorrow. Thank you, KB. I gave him a bright smile. To which he blushed and reciprocated with a wobbly one. I heard an impatient exhale coming from across the room. Now, he would not be getting a muffin tomorrow. Or ever. So, KB finally said, Jeff wanted to attend today's meeting to tell you personally, but you know how busy the schedule of a head of division is. Lots of parallel appointments. He will forward you all the info you need anyway, but I thought it would be a good idea to give you a heads up before. I blinked. What the hell are we talking about? Thank you again for that, KB. You are welcome, Lena. He nodded. I think that communication between all 5 of us is key to accomplish a KB era. Aaron's voice filled the room. Your point. KB's eyes jumped to him, and he appeared a little startled. Yes, thanks, Aaron. Then, he had to clear his throat twice before he could continue. Intech will host an open day in a few weeks. A big group of people will attend. Mostly potential clients who are curious about what we offer, but also some of the biggest projects we are working on. Jeff mentioned that all attendants are pretty high in management, too, Which makes sense because this is an initiative to expand and strengthen our network and to do it face to face. He wants Intech to show off, to look good, modern, to demonstrate that we are up to date with the current markets. But at the same time, show all prospective and current clients that we are not all about working. He chuckled nervously. That's why open day will last from 8 a.m., when the attendants will be welcome here at our headquarters, until midnight. Midnight? I murmured, barely able to conceal my surprise. Yes. KB nodded enthusiastically. Isn't it refreshing? It will be a full-blown event. All kinds of workshops on new technologies, knowledge exchange sessions, activities to get to know our clients and their needs. And of course, we'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinner catered. Oh, and after-work drinks too. You know, to lighten things up. My eyes had gradually widened as KB delivered his explanation. That a broken bar HA tilde copyright to started. That sounds different. It did. And it sounded like a complex event to plan in only a few weeks. Yes, Gerald answered, sounding suspiciously smug. It will definitely put Intech ahead in the game. KB nodded as his gaze met mine. Absolutely. And Jeff wants you to be in charge of everything, Lena. How amazing is that? I blinked, resting my back against the seat. He wants me to organize it? All of it? Yes. My colleague smiled at me, like he was giving me good news. And host it too? Out of the 5 of us, you are our most attractive option. Blinking very slowly, I watched his lips fall down, probably because of the expression coating my face. Attractive. Taking a deep breath, I tried to steady myself. Well, I'm flattered to be considered the most attractive option, I lied, willing myself not to focus on how my blood had started swirling. But I hardly have the time or the experience to organize something like this. But Jeff insisted, KB countered back. And it's important for Intech to have someone like you representing the company. I should ask what someone like me was supposed to mean, but I didn't think I wanted to hear the answer. My throat dried up, making it harder for me to swallow. Wouldn't any of us accomplish the same objective? Shouldn't someone with experience in what sounds like a public relations affair throw together an event this important? KB deflected, not answering my question. Jeff said you would be fine with the organization. That we don't need to spend extra resources hiring someone. Plus, you are a broken bar. He trailed off, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Social. Perky. Clenching my fist under the table, I tried my best to hide my inner turmoil. Sure, I gritted out. That was every person's dream, being referred to as perky by their boss. But I also have a job to do. I also have projects that I'm working on the clock for. How is this a broken bar event more important than my own clients and current responsibilities? I remained silent for a long moment, waiting for my colleague's support. Any kind of support. And a broken bar nothing, just the usual loaded silence that followed these kinds of situations. I shifted in my chair, feeling my cheeks heat up with frustration. KB, I said as calmly as I could, I know Jeff might have suggested that I be in charge of this. But you guys understand that this doesn't even make sense, right? A broken bar wouldn't even know where to start. This wasn't a thing I had been hired or was paid for. But no one was going to admit that, even when their support would make a difference. that would lead to the real reason why I had been given this task. I'm already covering for two of my best team members, Linda and Patricia. I don't have hours in the week as it is. I hated complaining and fishing for some ear at this point, and you're kind of understanding, but what else could I do? Gerald snorted, making my head swivel in his direction. Well, that's a drawback of hiring women in their 30s. I scoffed, not wanting to believe that he had just said that. But he had. I opened my mouth, but copywriter stopped me from saying anything. All right, how about we all help you? Copywriter suggested. I looked at him, finding him with a resigned expression. We could maybe all pitch in with something. I loved the man, but his soft heart and lack of confrontational spirit weren't helping all that much. He was only tiptoeing around the real issue. This is not high school, copywriter, Gerald snapped back. We are professionals, and we won't be pitching in with anything. Shaking his greasy, bald head, he followed that with another snort. Copywriter's mouth clamped shut. KB spoke again. I'll forward you the list of people Jeff put together, Lena. I shook my head again, feeling my cheeks heat up further, biting my tongue so I wouldn't tell my colleagues something I regret. Oh, KB added, Jeff also had a few ideas for the catering. That's in a separate email that I will forward to you too. But he wants you to do a little research on that. Maybe even think of a theme. He said you'd know what to do. My lips parted with a silent curse word that would make my A-bulla take me to church by the ear. I'd know what to do. How would I know? Reaching for my pen and holding it with both hands so I could squeeze some of the growing frustration away, I took a deep breath. I'm going to talk to Jeff myself, I said through pressed teeth that formed a tight smile. I'd usually not bother him, but would you just stop wasting our time already? Gerald said, making the blood in my face drop to my feet. You don't have to take this to our boss. Gerald's chubby finger waved through the air. Stop making excuses and just do it. You can smile and be extra friendly for a whole day, can't you? The words extra and friendly echoed in my head as I stared at him with wide eyes. The sweaty man, crammed into a dress shirt designed for someone who had a class he'd never achieve, would take any chance he could get to bring anyone down. Even more so if that happened to be a woman. I knew. Gerald, I gentled my voice and increased the pressure on my pen, praying it wouldn't break and give away how outraged I really felt. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss issues like this one. So, I'm sorry, but you are going to have to listen to me do exactly. Sweetheart, Gerald interrupted me, a sneer breaking across his face. Think of it as a party. Women know about those, don't they? Just prepare some activities, get some food delivered here, put on nice clothes, and crack some jokes. You are young and cute, you won't even have to use your brain all that much. They'll be eating right out of your hand. He chuckled. I'm sure you know how to do that, don't you? I choked on my own words. The air that was supposed to be getting in and out of my lungs was stuck somewhere in between. Not able to control what my body was doing, I felt my legs straighten, bringing me up. My chair screeched back, the noise loud and sudden. Smacking both hands on the surface of the desk, I felt my head blank for a second, and I saw red. Literally. In that precise moment, I understood where the expression had come from. I saw fucking red as if I had slipped on a pair of glasses with crimson lenses. Somewhere to my right, I heard HA tilde copyright Jer exhaling heavily, muttering under his breath. Then, I heard nothing. Only my heart hammering in my chest. There it was. The truth. The real reason why I, among the 4 other people sitting in this room, had been handpicked to do this damn thing. I was a woman, the only woman in the division, leading a team, and I had the goods, no matter how generous my curves were or not. Perky, cute, female. I was the attractive option, apparently. I was being showcased to our clients as the golden token that proved that Intech was not stuck in the past. Lena. I willed my voice to remain firm and calm, hating that it hadn't. Hating that I wanted to turn around and let my legs carry me out of the room. Not sweetheart. My name is Lena. I sat back on my chair very slowly, clearing my throat and taking one extra moment to rein it in. I have this. I need to have this. Next time, make sure to use my name, please. And address me with the decency and professionalism you do with everyone else. My voice reached my ears in a way I didn't like one bit, making me feel that weak version of myself that I didn't want to be. But at least I had managed to get it all out without flipping or running away. Thanks. Sensing how my eyes were starting to feel glassy out of pure outrage and frustration, I blinked a few times, willing that and everything else away from my face. Wishing that the lump in my throat had nothing to do with embarrassment, even when it did. Because how could I not feel embarrassed when I had snapped like that? Even after what had happened all that time ago, even being that this wasn't the first time I'd had to deal with this kind of crap, I still didn't know how. Gerald rolled his eyes. Don't take it so seriously, Lena. He shot me a condescending look. I was just joking around. Right, guys? He looked over at our colleagues, searching the room for their support. He didn't find any. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched HA tilde copyright the deflating in his chair. Gerald, a broken bar, he said, sounding tired and discouraged. Come on, man. Keeping my eyes on Gerald and trying to stop my chest from heaving with building helplessness, I refused to look at the other 2 men, Kabir and Aaron, who remained silent. They probably thought they were not taking any side, but they were. Their silence was doing exactly that. Oh, come on, what? Gerald scoffed. It's not like I said anything that's not true. The girl doesn't even need to try. Before I could muster the courage to stop him, the last person in the room I had expected to speak beat me to it. We are done here. My head snapped in his direction then, finding him looking at Gerald with something so thick and chilling that I could almost feel the air in the room drop a couple of degrees. Shaking my head, I snagged my gaze off Aaron. He could have said anything in the last 10 minutes, and he had chosen not to. He could remain silent for all I cared. Gerald's chair scraped against the floor, allowing him to stand up. Yes, we are certainly done, he said flatly, gathering his things. I don't have time for this either. She knows what to do anyway. And with that little pearl, Gerald walked to the door and left the room. My heart was still hammering in my chest, pummeling in my temples. Kabir followed suit, standing up and looking at me apologetically. I am not taking his side, okay? His eyes moved in Aaron's direction quickly, returning to me just as fast. This whole thing came from Jeff. He wants you to do this. Don't think too much about it. Take it as a compliment. Not bothering to answer, I watched him leave the room. The man who had almost taken me in and treated me as one more of the Dars clan looked at me and shook his head. He mouthed, "Quatilda copyright Pendo," which plucked a weak smile out of me because even if that wasn't something we would ever say in Spain, I knew exactly what he meant. And Tilda copyright was right. What a total app Gerald was. And then there was Aaron, who hadn't even bothered to look at me yet. His long fingers methodically gathered his things, and his even longer legs pushed the chair back, making it possible for him to straighten to his full height. While I glanced at him, still out of sorts by everything that had just gone down, I watched how his gaze bounced from his hands to me. His eyes, which I could tell had sobered up and returned to that aloof semblance, remained on me for a heartbeat and then dismissed me just as quickly. Just like he always did. My gaze followed his oddly large and sturdy figure walk to the door and into the hallway, the hammering in my chest somehow speeding up and settling down, all at once. "Let's go, Major," Tilda copywriter said, now standing and looking down on me. "I have a bag of chicharrones in my office. Ximena slipped it into my laptop bag the other day, and I've been saving it." He followed that with a wink. Standing from my chair, I laughed lightly. Tilda copywriter's little girl was getting a bear hug for me the next time I saw her. "You need to raise that girl's weekly allowance." I followed him out, trying my best to return the smile. Although I couldn't help but notice that after only a few steps, the corners of my lips wavered, breaking into something that didn't quite reach my eyes.